Welcome GRD132 to ex8, our font ID exercise. This is kind of practice that we're going to do here with some logos that we already worked with, and we're just going to take a different approach to it. And I'm going to start off with Children's Place, and instead of just trying to match it as close as we can from the Google fonts, what we're going to do is actually go find the font, and let's identify the font. It doesn't mean we have to download it or we have to use it, but we want to identify the font 100% or at least as close as we possibly can. And what I did here is I searched Children's Place logo, and I'm going to search images because I don't want to take it off a bag because there was a lot of distortion going on in that bag, that picture of the bag that I used for that exercise. So I'm going to try to find the logo. Now they have download vector and stuff. Now I'm just going to try to find the best I can, and I'm only looking for place, so I'll just click here and see what I come up with. Now these are ping images here, and they're fine. You could use a black and white image. You could use this. I'll start with this, and I'll show you what you can do. Even without using Photoshop, we're going to use something called Photopea. And if you've never used it, this will be really easy. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to find a logo. It's 800 by 600. That's not bad. You don't want to use something too small, and we don't have to use anything giant either. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right-click on this logo, and I'm going to choose Copy Image. Now, we're going to go to Photopea.com. If you've never used it, it's like an online Photoshop. Photopea.com. You don't have to sign in, you don't have to make an account, just go to Photopea.com, and you might have to turn off ad blockers. That's the only thing. And when you're here, what we're going to do is we're going to make a new file. You're going to go File New because we copied something. So you could go File New, and we're using the file from here, not up here. We're using it in the app, so we're going to use File New. And if you noticed, it says 800 by 600, and that's because we copied something that's 800 by 600. And I'm going to put a name in here, and I'm going to call it Place because we're using the place of Children's Place. And that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to hit Create. And it has a blank canvas here. And what do you think we're going to do? We're going to paste, because remember, we just did copy image. So we're going to go back here and we're going to paste. So if you're on Windows, you can do Control V. I'm on a Mac, I'm going to do Command V. And there it is. And what I'll do first is maybe make it a little darker if I can. I'm just going to go to Image Adjustments, and I'm going to go to Levels, and maybe I'll just darken this up a little bit. We don't have to make it completely black. It should still pick up, but I'm just going to bring in the dark in here and just darken a little bit, just so it's a little more darker blue. That's all you have to do. You could come in from this end too, but I just want to make sure that this is a little darker, and that's all I'll do here. And I'll hit OK. Now, all I want from this is just the place. So we're going to crop it. And that's easy enough. We're going to go over here and look for the crop tool. And there it is. And I'll click on it. And I'm just going to draw a box. Don't get too close to the edges. And I'll zoom in here. I'll do Control plus or Command plus if you're on a Mac. A little bit. And I'm just going to draw a box around place. That's all I want is place. I'm not even worried about the children's. It should be able to identify by these 5 letters. So I'm going to use the crop tool and just go around here, and it'll make a selection, and then just hit enter, and that'll crop it. Then you have a place.psd. We don't need a PSD file. All we need is a JPEG file. So I'm going to go to File, Export As, and choose JPEG. And I could leave it this size. That's fine. 646 wide, that's fine. Quality 70%, that's fine too. That's not going to affect the sharpness on the edges. That may affect the quality inside there, but that should be fine. And then I'm just going to hit save. Now when I hit save, what will happen is it will download it. So I'll hit save, and there it is. It downloaded. So it's in my downloads. Okay, so what am I going to do with that? Well, we're going to go to another website. We're going to go to WhatTheFont. You can type in WhatTheFont. It actually is going to go to myfonts.com. So here it is, WhatTheFont, and it's myfonts.com. So if you just went to myfonts.com, it would go there. And we've been here before, but they have a tool here that'll identify fonts by image. And here it has, click here to upload an image. Well, let's do it. Let's upload an image, and there it is. It's in my downloads. So I just downloaded something from Photopea, and I'm going to choose it. And I'll hit open, and there it is. And then I'm just going to make sure it's surrounding all that text. There's a little preview box here that's going around all these letters. And then there's just an arrow here, a little start button that says identify the selected font. And if I go in here, I'll notice that it picked up Revival 565, Revival 565. Now you'll see fonts from different foundries. Here's Bitstream, here's Paratype, and there's some other similar ones here, although the E looks pretty similar. So I would be happy if you just told me it's Revival 565. That looks pretty good. If you zoom in here, and I can make this a little bit bigger and look at these letters a little bit bigger, that's pretty accurate for what we had here. And that looks pretty good. The L looks good. The E bends out a little bit there. I think these all look the same. Even this burling looks pretty much the same. I can't see anything different in the burling, but I would say Revival 565. Esperanto, I don't know. There's some kind of differences here. It doesn't have that little tiny barb coming up. There's a tiny barb coming up. Here it doesn't. It's more squared off. Plus the A is squared off. So you could check other letters, and you could certainly type in other letters and see what they look like. But if you said Revival 565 Roman, that's fine. You don't have to say regular, just Revival 565. If you said burling, that looks pretty good too. I'm not sure if I'm seeing anything about burling that would rule it out, but I would say Revival 565. So we found the exact font that we're using there. Now all I want you to do when you're done is just upload this thing into your comments. But before you do that, let's try another one. Let's try one more. And I want you just practicing with me just to kind of work with Photopea a little bit and work with my fonts. And then I have another exercise, ex9, where you're going to do all this. So if you remember, going back here, the last thing that we worked on was not only Children's Place, but we also worked on the Shelby. So let me put in the Shelby. Now, that's a common name, so I'm going to make sure I choose restaurant, and hopefully I'll find that scripty one there. Now, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing a black and white. Now, it's obviously best to work in black and white, but what if you can't? Let me just click on this. What if this is the only one we have? Now, this is showing white here. And it's 400. It's 400 pixels. I'm going to stay away from that. I was going to show you a way we could kind of flip it around, but let's find another one. Let's click on this one. And this one is 691. That's not bad. Now, we want to get rid of this other type because it's not going to scan well. We're just looking for the script font right now. So I'm still going to right-click on here and say Copy Image. So I'm copying that image. And I'll go back to Photopea. I'm done with this. I could close this. Don't need it. Come back to my opening screen here, and again, if I go File New, see there's the 691, so it's the same size, and I'm going to call this Shelby. And we're going to find that script font exactly. And I'll hit Create. So we're just making a new document, and it'll be the size of whatever we copied. And we're just going to paste, and there's Shelby. Now, we're going to make it a little darker. Let me zoom in here. It looks a little grayish, so I'll make it darker the same way. I'll go to Image, Adjustments, and I'll use levels. Now this is showing, this is the whole representation of pixels going from dark to light. Now obviously there's only a couple here, so I'm just going to darken it from this end and maybe lighten it a little bit from this end just to make it really high contrast, and that's all you need to do. What I'm going to do right now is get rid of this. Now there's different ways you can get rid of this. You can take a marquee here and highlight on this and just hit delete. And you can highlight this thing and just hit delete, and now that's gone. And we could probably use this whole thing. You could crop it in a little bit more, but I think this is okay. And make sure if you have a marquee there, take your marquee tool and just click off so that goes away. Or you could always go Select and then go to Deselect, Command D, or Control D if you're on Windows. But there's nothing there right now. So what we're going to do now is make a JPEG of this without that text. So I'm going to go to File, Export As. Now we don't want a PSD. We want a JPEG, because that's common. And then we'll just save this, and this will go to our downloads, and it'll be called, instead of shelby.psd, it'll be called shelby.jpg. And there it is. Now there must be another one in there, because this one's now called Shelby 1. I'm going to go back to WhatTheFont, and I'm going to upload image. And now I'm going to get that Shelby. And there it is. Now there must be another Shelby in there somewhere. That's why it has Shelby 1 on it. But I'll just leave that there right now. Now, some tools have a problem with script fonts because they're connected. It can't decipher individual letters. So I think this site is the best one. I tried it at a different site, Font Squirrel, and it had a big problem with this. So this was the most accurate, so there's no reason to change. I'll stay here, and I'll hit Open. And keep in mind, it says, does this image need to be rotated? And it doesn't. But This thing is the preview. So you got to make sure you open this thing up all the way so that it sees the full preview. I'm not sure why it was doing that. It just doesn't like that these things are connected. So I'm going to do this first, and then I'll just generate the font or generate what it thinks will be the font. So I'll click here. Now we're going to try to find the exact font. And actually, believe it or not, this is the best choice it came up with. So it did not find this font. So what does that mean? It means this font could have been created. It could have been revised from a different font and adjusted somehow. So it doesn't mean that every logo that you see is from a font. Somebody could have done this by hand. They could have created this in Illustrator or Gravit or something like that. So there's no fonts coming here. And these are all fonts. These aren't just fonts from my fonts. These are from all different foundries. So they're not even coming close to anything here. So if, we actually didn't do too bad doing that in Google Fonts. We came pretty close. Here's one that looks pretty close here to that, but there's definitely differences. That the L looks a little different. That's probably the closest ones. I'd say the closest one here is Fine Day out of these, although this is getting kind of closer. I mean, some of these are okay in different ways. They're all in their own kind of way. This Koozie script isn't too bad, although the S is kind of different. Actually, I'm thinking Koozie script might be the best one out of them. I'd say Koozie script. I tried this another time and it didn't come up with Koozie script, but that looks pretty good, although the S here is a little more curly than the one up here. But, just like when we messed around with it, we tried different things. Now, they have the B connected. Here it's not connected. But everything else looks pretty good. The L isn't quite the same. Here it loops up higher. Down here it loops down lower. But I'd say Koozie script is probably the one. Now, obviously, you don't want to buy it or get it or download it. We don't have to do that. Now, you can actually search fonts that are close to this. There's even sites where you can say, find a font that is closely matched to this, and it'll try to find that. So you can't always find the font. That's what I wanted to show you as well. You can't always find that font. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to upload 3 images when you're done. The place, this one. Now you're saying, well, what other one? Well, let's go back to Photopea. And you're like, oh, you got rid of that other stuff. Well, we can actually paste it again if you want. We can actually go here, this layer, if you want to do this, if you want to just go to layer 1 here, click on it and hit the trash can. You could delete it. I'm just going to paste again by going Command V, and if you're on Windows, do Control V. And if it didn't work out, go back and copy it again. Now, this is the original. Now, all I want is this part down here. So I'm just going to take my crop tool and go down here and just get this eat, drink, cheers, and just draw a box around it with my crop tool and then hit enter. And now it's cropped. And I'll zoom in a little bit so I can see it a little better. And I'll also darken it because it was a little bit on the gray side. So I'll go to Image, Adjustments, Levels. Darken it from this side, grab that little black thing, that darkens the darks. And that's kind of what we want. And then you could even lighten the lights. There's nothing wrong with making the background whiter. And we'll hit OK. And you don't have to sharpen it or do anything. This should be fine. And let me stop for a second. Let me just click off of here. It's still called Shelby. Double click on here and let's change this. And let's call it Eat Drink. Just so we know it's a different image. So we'll call it Eat Drink. And we'll hit OK. And now it's called eatdrink.psd. We're not going to use the PSD. We're going to use the JPEG. But now it'll make a JPEG called eatdrink.jpg. So we don't have one called Shelby or Shelby 1, whatever it was. So luckily I caught myself doing that. I'm going to go back to File, Export as JPEG. And there it is. I'll leave it the way it is. I'll download it. And it's called eatdrinkjpg. And all this is in my downloads. I'll go back to WhatTheFont. And I'll go back to Image. And you could always go back to WhatTheFont and just click on here, WhatTheFont. If you want to start over from scratch, it'll go to this upload image again. And then I'm going to upload that image. And I'm going to try to match that Eat Drink font. Well, I'm not going to match it. I'm going to let the computer do it. And I'm just going to make sure I drag the whole thing here. I'll just drag the whole thing so it sees everything. And I think that's okay. And let's see what happens. And you can make this smaller so you can see more of it. Because if you need to look at the R or anything like that, you can adjust this. But what I'm looking for here, they all look pretty good. The R looks pretty good. All the R's look the same. This one, Connect or Organetto, Blondie Sands, they all look pretty good. And what I want to look for is the C. And I think this C in Connect looks a little better. I don't know if you can if you can tell, but it looks like it closes, like the C closes a little bit more here. And what I want to check too between these, let's look at the K, because look at this. This has kind of a bar, a crossbar, and it has kind of a leg going down and another extender kind of coming out from that crossbar, almost like an H, and they kind of bent the sides of them. Now this is more of a K. It has kind of the one bar going up and then the leg coming down from the bar. And if I look at this, I'll try to zoom in. I know it's not high resolution, but you can see that's more of that kind of K. So that looks a little more accurate. So I'd have to say it's that one. Now it could be this Blondie Sands, but I think based on the C, based on the R, it looks like the R has more of the counter at the top is a little bit bigger and it's a shorter leg. I think that's what kind of gets me about this. So this looks like connect. So what you want to do when you're done, and that we're just practicing. That's all we're doing here, because you could just watch the video and say it's connect. So you know it's connect and what the other two were as well, whatever the closest script font we had for the other one. Hopefully you wrote them down of what you used. Otherwise, just watch the video again and see what I got. But once you do that, all I want you to do, just so I know that you practiced it and you did it, because this is going to help you for the next assignment, maybe not even as much, because you don't have to do as much in Photopea. I wanted you to do something in Photopea as well, just to see what to do, because sometimes you're not always going to have clean fonts to work with. Sometimes you have to clean them up. Sometimes you have to get rid of some things in them that might be more distracting when you go to scan your font. But now what you could do is, when you're done here, go back to My Warren and go to Coursework, and go down to Unit 12, even though we're a little past Unit 12. I have this under Unit 12. You're going to go to ex8 Unit 12 and just click on the link. And it's not set up to upload images, but you know how to upload images, or at least I think you do. You can go in here to add comment and just click your cursor in here and go to this little thing here with the sun and mountains and just upload an image. And you're just going to upload these 3 images. So you're just going to go here and click on that. Click on this little upload icon, go find it, and if you have Moxie Manager, you have to go here to upload. If you don't, it might just go to right where your images are. And these are in my download, so there's place. I'll put place in there, and I'll insert. Now, you can make this smaller. You don't have to have it real big. You could make it 300 if you want. And just hit save. It's just evidence that you did it, that you cropped it, you went into Photopea. That's all it is. And then you can just hit return and do another one. Use this icon and find the next one. Hit upload. Go find the Shelby one that you did. Upload. Insert. And if it says something like 600, you don't need it that big. Just put 300 is fine. Just so it fits in the window. I just need to look at it. You're not doing anything with it, and that's good. And then hit enter again. And then your final one is that eat drink. And you're going to click on this. Hit the upload icon. Hit upload if you have to use Moxie Manager. Find eat drink. There it is. Hit insert. This says 443. I'll put that at like 350. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And we're good. That's all you need to do for this assignment. You just have to hit save. And once I see that, I'll know that you did it. And hopefully you looked up the fonts. That doesn't really help you right now because you can watch the video and see what the fonts are. I just want to see that you were able to do that. If you want to go and put the fonts in here with the ones you found, you match the best, but they're probably the ones that I found as well. So that's why I'm doing this. But I just want you to do this. This is kind of practice for what we're going to do next. So what we're going to do next is you're going to go identify fonts using the same method. And I'm going to give you the images. So you don't have to scan them. You don't have to do anything other than just download them. So that'll be in the next assignment where you'll do that. And I'll start you off with that just to see how to do this. But this is for ex8. And then for the next one, ex9, you're going to go find 5 different fonts. They're fairly common fonts, but you may not know the names, but you should.